Despite going into last night's NBA draft without a draft pick, your Portland Trail Blazers came away with not one, but two rookies, and I'm going to talk about them. What's going on, everyone? Hope you're having a great day. This video is going to be an introduction to Greg Brown III and Trendon Watford. Now, despite the Blazers not having a pick, it was widely expected that they would buy their way into the second round. They ended up giving up a 2026 second round pick as well as cash considerations to the New Orleans Pelicans for the 43rd pick in the draft last night. With that selection, they took Greg Brown. And I don't know, I like the pick. I don't mind the pick whatsoever. There was a couple guys I really wanted. I wanted a Joel Ayayi. Somehow he went undrafted, which I think is an absolute shame. I'm also sad that he went to the Los Angeles Lakers, but Greg Brown is an intriguing prospect with a lot of upside, so I like that they're going for someone with a very high ceiling. Trendon Watford was on my draft targets video, and the Blazers ended up picking him up with a two-way contract. I also like that signing. So in terms of the Blazers draft last night, even though it wasn't big, I would probably give them a B+. So I'm going to touch a little bit on both these guys. I watched more film on Greg Brown, and his highlight reel is impressive. This dude is a freak athlete standing at 6'7", but with a 7-foot wingspan and 8'11" standing reach. He has normal size for an NBA power forward, might even be able to play the center position in the NBA. He is a guy who's very raw offensively, but fluid for his size, agile for his size, pretty quick for his size, I would say, and shows some flashes of being able to handle the ball a little bit and knock down the three-point shot. He shot 33% from 3 last year at the University of Texas. So the Blazers here are essentially going for an athlete with solid size for his position and hoping that they can develop some of the flashes of skill that he's shown. If he's able to develop his ball skills, I could see him becoming a serviceable NBA player. I think the main key for him is he has to be a stretch four. He has to be able to knock down the three-point shot, and given the fluidity of his stroke, I think he has a legitimate chance of being a solid NBA three-point shooter. Now, his form is a little to the side of his head, a little weird, almost reminds you of a less egregious Al-Farouq Aminu type of form, but I think his form is good enough and solid enough and repeatable enough for him to be able to knock down three-point shots at the next level. The better his three-point shot is, the better he will be offensively, because he's a guy that will be able to attack closeouts. He's a good enough straight line driver and quick enough that he should be able to attack guys that close out on him too hard. He just has to make those guys close out on him hard in the first place. So in order to do that, got to be able to knock down the three-point shot. Now, beyond his shooting, he was a turnover machine and not a playmaker whatsoever last year at the University of Texas. So the coaching staff is really going to have to try and improve his decision-making. He took some bad shots. His shot selection needs to improve, and he needs to be able to make the right reads and see the floor better. There was a lot of possessions where he'd try and force the issue against multiple defenders and would ignore an obvious kick-out pass. Now, this is where I like Chauncey Billups being our head coach. He was credited last year with helping multiple Clippers players improve their playmaking and passing ability and passing vision, and helping them see the floor and make reads better. So if you can get Greg Brown in under Chauncey Billups, hopefully Chauncey can do the same thing with the rookie. Hopefully he can help him make better decisions, make reads that he hasn't made before. And if he can do that, then maybe you have a guy who, you know, he's never going to be like a 4 or 5 assists per game guy, but if he can make the right play, then that's promising, because that's been one of the biggest knocks, and that's why he fell down to the 43rd pick. Going into this past season, he was a projected lottery pick, actually. He was one of the most highly touted recruits coming into college. He was a highly ranked high school prospect. This has been a theme with Neil Olshey. He likes going after guys that were pretty highly ranked in high school, and that's the thing, is normally when you have a highly ranked prospect in high school, they have a ton of natural talent, athletic ability, flashes of doing multiple things. When those guys fall, it's usually because they struggled during their freshman season. Nasir Little was like this at the University of North Carolina. Greg Brown is also like this. Offensively, in my opinion, he's a boomer bust prospect. His ceiling is high, which is why I like this pick. I don't think we needed to go for a guy that is ready to help us now. It's nice to have another guy on this roster that has a high long-term ceiling, but his floor is also pretty low. If he can't knock down the 3-point shot, which is possible, if he continues to take bad shots, if he continues to make the wrong reads and make the wrong decisions, then offensively he's not going to be a good NBA player. So it all comes down to how he's developed by the coaching staff. This is going to be Chauncey Billups's first piece that he gets to develop from the start. Now, I think Chauncey will have a great impact on Anthony Simons and Nasir Little next season, but this is a guy that I assume Chauncey had some interest in. I assume Chauncey was in the war room with Neil Olshey, helping make the decision to draft Greg Brown. So if that's the case, then I view it as Chauncey thinking that he could develop this guy into a serviceable NBA player. The other part of his offensive game that I want to touch on is I just think he will be a good guy playing off the ball as a cutter if he learns when to cut and make the right cuts. I think he'll be an absolute threat in transition, and then I think he can be a pretty good pick and roll finisher and maybe even a pick and pop guy. So hopefully Damian Lillard is here long term, and if that's the case and Greg Brown can develop into a rotation player the next 2 or 3 years, I could see him being a good fit playing off of Dame in the pick and roll. Now defensively, I think he has some upside. He has the athleticism, he has the agility. I think he could be a rim protector because he's quick off the floor and has a really good second jump. So although his standing reach would be below average for a center, I think he can make up for that with some of his athleticism. He's also pretty strong, so he's not a guy that I think will be easily moved as he continues to add strength once he gets into the NBA. He's a guy I could see being good at blitzing pick and rolls, playing up on screens because he has the foot speed to do so, in my opinion. I think he has the potential to be a guy that guards small forwards, power forwards, and centers pretty well. I think he has some versatility upside on that end of the ball. So overall, I like this pick. I think his career will depend on his 3-point shot and how he's able to improve his ball skills and some of his decision making. I think those are the biggest swing factors that determine Greg Brown's career. But those are skills that I have confidence in Chauncey Billups and his staff coaching properly, so I'm actually pretty optimistic long term about Greg Brown here in Portland. Now let's talk about our two-way signing, which was Trendon Watford. This was a guy I talked about in my Blazers draft targets video, and I said he's probably going to go undrafted. If that's the case, I would like to sign him with a two-way contract, and we did exactly that. Now, Trendon Watford played at LSU last year. He stands at 6'8", but has a 7'2" wingspan and 8'9" standing reach. So he's slightly undersized for the power forward position, but not so much so that I think it's going to be an issue. He averaged 16 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 3 assists per game, shot 48% for the field, and 31.6% from 3. The value in Trendon Watford lies in his playmaking and off the dribble ability at the power forward position. I think long term he can be a pretty good playmaking four. He has solid court vision, is a very solid passing four. That's why he intrigued me. Is I like playmaking fours. I like playmaking big, so being able to get a forward that can pass and do some stuff off the dribble like he can is intriguing to me. Now, the biggest issue with his offensive game is he doesn't hit the 3-point shot. Shooting only 31.6%, it's not promising long term. He also only shot 65% from the free throw line, so his jumper is something that he's going to have to figure out if he wants a chance at an NBA career. That is the biggest factor for him. And as the league trends towards more and more shooting, it's a bigger factor for pretty much every prospect. Like every prospect in this draft that struggled with this 3-point shot, it's sort of a situation where if they can figure out their 3-point shot, they're going to be a solid player. Because this is a loaded draft, so a lot of guys that did fall, it was simply because they couldn't shoot the 3-ball too well. I think if he was a good 3-point shooter, Trendon Watford would have gotten drafted in this draft. Being able to knock down threes will open up his game, much like with Greg Brown. If he gets ran off the 3-point line, then he's a threat as a driver, not only to score, but also to pass. He just has to be somebody that's able to keep the defense honest and keep the defense respecting him on the perimeter. He's not a guy that's going to be creating all that much if defenders can simply sag off him and wait for him in the paint. He's not necessarily the quickest guy. He was able to get by defenders in college, but a lot of the ways in which he scored in college, I don't see translating too well to the NBA. Quickness is something that's kind of hard to work on. Honestly, it might serve him well to actually lose a little bit of weight. He weighed in at 237 pounds at the draft combine. I would honestly like to see that around 225 pounds. He's not a guy that's going to be playing much center. He doesn't have the length for that, so you don't really need him to be too bulky. If he can slim down a little bit and get quicker, that will help him on both sides of the floor, and that'll help him be able to drive the lane. So honestly, he's kind of a weird case as a rookie where you might want him to lose a little bit of weight instead of gaining it. Now defensively, he's He's not a good player whatsoever. He's not quick laterally. He really struggles to stay in front of guys on the perimeter. That's where I think slimming down might help him a little bit. He has to work on his foot speed. He doesn't necessarily have the best motor on that end, and he needs to become better conditioned. Even if it's not a situation where he loses weight, I think his conditioning could use some work. There was a lot of times at LSU, which is a team I actually watched quite a bit last year. They had a very interesting team. There was a lot of times where it seemed like he was gassed and he was struggling with his conditioning, and it would be very evident on the defensive end where it would just be him kind of letting guys walk past him without much of an effort. Overall, I've talked about a lot of weaknesses with Trendon Watford, but his ball handling and playmaking at the power forward position make him worth a two-way contract, and it's a better two-way contract than we gave out last year to Blevins or TJ Leaf. I'd rather have this guy than either of those two guys on a two-way contract. And if he's a guy that can improve defensively, improve his three-point shot, and get a little bit quicker by maybe losing a little bit of weight, then you could definitely have an NBA player on your hands. There's always guys in every draft that go undrafted and end up becoming good role players or even solid starters, and maybe Trendon Watford could be one of those guys. Anyway, let me know what you think about the Blazers' 2 rookie pickups in last night's draft down in the comment section below. I'm curious to see what you guys think about him. I assume there's probably going to be some split opinions, but in the end, it's a draft in which we had no picks and we were able to come away with 2 guys that I think have some upside. So I like it. The risk versus reward here is a good ratio. There's really no risk in getting either of these guys, and I think the reward is maybe a little bit higher than some people realize. If anything, this just makes Summer League more fun, and we might have to do live play-by-play streams of Summer League games and or post-game shows. If you are interested in neither of those things, let me know down in the comment section below. Anyway, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're now chasing 6,000 subs. Thank you for 5,000. Maybe we can get to 6,000 before the calendar turns to 2022. That is my next goal. Anyway, appreciate the support. I'm out of here. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.